name is Mackenzie, and this is week 5 out of 12 in my Design to Code challenge. So week 1, I designed a agency landing page. Week 3, I designed a movie and TV show trailer site. And in this episode, this week, I'm going to be designing a jobs board site. So my goals with this design is to strike a balance between keeping it clean and minimal and fun and inviting. And the ways I plan on doing that is through the use of color and typography and visual hierarchy, spacing, etc. So let's jump on the computer and you can see how I go about this. Alright guys, so to begin, I have set up a blank document. The only thing I've gone ahead and done is set up some guides. So this document is 1600 pixels wide and I made it about 2000 pixels high. I might end up extending the height of it if we need, but I'm not quite sure yet. And then for this design, it's simply going to be a single column. So I want the column to be fairly skinny compared to the viewport. So I decided to make the column itself 750 pixels wide. So to begin, I want to grab some colors. I'm going to go to Chrome and go to the site I made called lolcolors.com. And let's see, I'm just going to go to the popular page. I am going to use this color scheme right here. So what I'll do is I'm going to grab that screenshot, bring it into Photoshop, and then I'll just have this to refer to when I need. Let me lock that layer. All right, so what I'm thinking is each job post listing is going to be a block to itself, and then I'm going to represent those job listings inside of a timeline. So let's start by grabbing the rounded rectangle tool and create a simple shape to act as our job post listing. So the border radius, let's bring it down to maybe like 8 pixels on each side. As far as the color goes, I want it to be white, and then I'm going to apply a stroke to it. And the stroke, let's do 2 pixels. And let's do a light gray color, so light bluish gray. So maybe something like D9DEEA. That looks pretty good. Let's see, 1 pixel, 2 pixels. What do you guys think? I'm thinking 2 pixels. We can always change that later. So what I'm thinking is each job posting is going to have a profile or avatar for the company that is looking to hire. So for example, Twitter or Facebook, product hunt, etc. And then we would have the title of the job and then the information, for example, like the employer, the location, and the date it was posted. And then over here, I'm going to have various categories. For example, full-time, part-time, freelance, and contact. And for the categories, I'm going to use the various colors that I grabbed here to represent the various categories. So visually, you can quickly distinguish between them. So I've already gone ahead and grabbed some images. I'm just going to pull those up. So I've made a image for each of various companies. Kickstarter is a bit smaller than the others. I'm just gonna scale that up a bit. Perfect. Cool, so I'm just going to put those to the side for now, and then I will just grab those as needed. So first I'm just gonna grab like Twitter or something. So I want to grab the rounded rectangle tool. I'm gonna create a shape, square shape behind it. I'm gonna hold shift while I'm doing this, so it's a perfect square. And let's bring down the border radius to maybe something like 5 pixels. It doesn't matter what color it is. And then in the layers panel, I'm going to apply it as a mask. And then I'm going to grab those layers and hit link layers. That way I can just grab them both together. So what I want to do is put this so there's the same distance on each side. So let me get rid of the guides for now. I'm just going to eyeball this. So something like this, and then I'm going to bring up the actual outer shape. Something like that looks pretty good. All right, then I'm going to create a text layer, and let's say like UX designer or something. Let's make the font. I'm going to use Proxima Nova for this. For the title, let's make it bold. And then the color of it, I'm going to grab that dark gray color, the dark bluish gray. That looks pretty good. Far too large, but I'm just going to leave it for now. And then below that, I want to have the info about the job. So let's say something like Twitter, do some space. And then I'm going to create a bullet point, which is, I can never remember. On my keyboard, it's Function Shift Option 9. And then I will just copy that. Copy that bullet point. Okay, so let's say Twitter. I think Twitter's in San Francisco. I could be wrong on that. Doesn't really matter either way. Well, let's make this a bit smaller. And then I'm going to copy the space and the bullet point and then do it over here again. And I'm just going to say something like January 1st for the date this was posted. That looks pretty good. So as far as the color goes, I'm going to make this first a regular font weight. It's quite a bit smaller font size wise. And then I'm going to make it a lighter gray color. There we go, maybe something like 9693AE hex code. Looks pretty good. I'm going to shrink down the title a bit. And then I want to grab both these and center them vertically so there's the same amount of space on top as there is on bottom. So I'm going to grab the marquee tool. Let's see, there's 31 pixels on top. Bottom there is 27, so I think I need to move it up 2 pixels. There we go. Now we have 30 pixels and I believe 31. That's close enough. When we get into code, we can clean that up. And then on the other side, let's copy that. Let's make it right justified. And I'm going to say something like full dash time. And to distinguish this a bit, I'm going to make it all caps. Let's make it a bold font weight. And it doesn't need to be nearly as large. As for color, what I was thinking is using each of these highlight colors to represent the various job posting categories. For example, full-time, part-time, freelance, and contract. So for full-time, I'm just going to select this reddish orangish color. That looks pretty good. I'm going to add some letter spacing in here just to open it up a bit. I'm going to say maybe 100. And then I want to, let's create a circle the same height as the font itself. And then let's make it the same color. So zooming out a bit, that looks okay. It's not great. Let's bring this in a bit. Maybe bring all of these in. Actually, no, I don't like that. Let's leave the avatar where it's at. I think it's the spacing in between the UX designer and the other stuff. Let's shrink this down slightly and then bring this down so there's not so much space, and then bring it both of them up so it's I'm just eyeballing this. When we get into the code, I can clean it up and make sure it's perfect. But for now, that looks better. I think this font still might be slightly too large for the info. Let's shrink that down a bit more. Maybe give it more spacing on the left. That looks pretty good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is grab all that, group it. I'm going to say listing 1, and then I'm just going to simply go to the layers panel, hit Command J to duplicate that. I'll do listing number 2, and then let's bring this down a bit. Then I'm going to do something, let's say front end engineer or something like that. Engineer. Let's grab like dribble Let's say this is a contract job or something. So you know what I just realized is there'd be 4 different categories. So full-time, part-time, freelance, and contract. So we should probably grab one other color in addition to these 3. What I'm thinking is maybe a purple color. So maybe a slightly desaturated, something like A0643. That looks pretty good up against these. Yeah. So what I was thinking is we're going to have the gray color to differentiate the lines. This dark gray for the main bold text, and then the other various colors to represent the various categories. All right, so let's continue on. I'm going to grab this dribble icon. Let's bring it up here. Center that and grab these layers, and I'm going to link them. Cool. So let's change the contract color maybe to like this purple. And then I'm going to change the purple, or the color of the bullet point as well. Where's dribble located? San Francisco? That doesn't sound right. Okay, so I need to duplicate that whole group and bring that down. I'll do listing number 3. There we go. Now I can bring it down like so. Okay, now I'll do Rails developer. Let's make this SoundCloud. Bring that up in the layers panel and link those layers. Okay, so to get the timeline effect, what I was thinking was simply have a line that we would go through. Oops, I'm gonna grab the rectangle tool, so I find that easier to work with than the line tool. So I'm going to simply make this the same color as the other lines. And zoom in, I'm going to make this 2 pixels wide instead of 1 to match above. There we go, that looks pretty good. And then to differentiate the different days, I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to grab the rounded rectangle tool. Make sure it's something like this, make it white, and I'm going to apply the same stroke we had above. And then I'm simply going to grab this text, make sure it's outside of that group. And I'll do something like maybe January 1st. And that's far too large, so I'm going to shrink that down. You know what, maybe this should be like the same width as this. Something like this. That looks pretty good. It's a bit dark. Let's change the color to maybe match the subtitle or the info on the actual job posting. And the font size is still pretty large. I don't think, visually it doesn't need to have the same focus or emphasis as the job postings. So I'm going to make it a bit smaller. Make sure it's all centered evenly. Looks pretty good. Yeah, something like that looks pretty cool. So we would have the various days, and then it would say the date, and then we would have the job post listings again, like so. Let's make some more space, and I'm going to center the date between the two. Cool. And let me just clean up the layers panel real quick. And what I'm going to do is simply change out these avatars and title, but I will fast forward through that because not really fun to watch. Cool, this is looking good. So what I want to do next is create the header. So two things I had in my head. First off, I want to make this site a bit more fun because the design itself is very, very minimal and very clean. But I want to play on the colors a bit. So what I was thinking is up top at the very top of the site, do something like this. Going to create 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then I will just put those like so. And make it 50%. Then I'll change those colors. I want to, I want to make the colors a simple pattern up top. And then I'm going to duplicate that. Let's just group these. I'll say top border, then bring that up top. It's a bit high, it's a bit heavy right now, so let's see, I'm thinking just a few pixels, so it's like noticeable, but it's not like in your face. Yeah, I feel like this brings a lot more emotion to the design, so without it, I feel like it's a little too clean, it's a little too sterile, but with it, it adds some personality, some emotion, and makes it feel more fun, more inviting and friendly, which in my opinion, when you can do that, I am all for it. So the next thing I want to do is get a logo, and for that I was thinking of using one of the Little Faces characters that I created back in my daily design for episode 50, I believe. Let's see, I just want something fun and happy, so let's just grab the happy one. And I'm just going to grab it as is, paste it in here. So let's make it probably the same size as this. It doesn't need to be very large. Maybe a little bit bigger. Something like that looks cool. Let's call this site like Awesome Jobs or something. And then let's make it something like this. So there's 2 font weights between the two. That looks pretty cool to me. The two of those together are a bit large, so I'm going to shrink that down. Visually, I don't want this to compete with the job listings themselves. I kind of want that to take a backseat to the listings, because obviously the people coming here are either wanting to list a job or are wanting to get a job. So this should be less important visually than the job postings themselves. So next, let's do something like this. Line up to the right, right justify it. Let's make the color match what we have down below. There we go. Something like that. I don't need it to be bold font or uppercase. So what I'm going to do is say full-time, add some space, maybe like 10 spaces, part-time. Let's copy that and the space. Freelance, and then one more would be contract work. I'm going to shrink it down a bit. You know what? I probably need one more as well, thinking about it. Let me copy this, and I will just say all jobs. So for the all jobs, let's make that one bold and change the color to the dark gray. This is looking good. One thing that's bugging me, I feel like, I'm not quite sure what it is. I think it's these avatars, the posters or the logos. I feel like they're a bit large. Maybe everything's a bit large. What would it look like if I just took these all and shrunk them down slightly? I would still want them 750 pixels wide. Let me bring up the guides. Let me move those to the side and see if that solves the issue. Let me bring the header down a bit. I always forget to grab the date itself. So this one would be December 31st. Yeah, I think that's it. I think now it's not as large. That's a bit better. So obviously some days we would have more than just 3. So let me create some additional ones to represent that. Then bring the timeline line down as well. Let's see, we have 48 pixels between the two. That looks good. Okay, yeah, this looks a lot better. Real quick, I'm just going to update these. All right, you know what? I'll just leave the other ones for now. It's not that big of a deal if they're repeating. So I want the header to be centered between the top and the first posting. So that looks pretty good. We have the various postings in a timeline format with the date separating the various dates to break it up a bit. So this looks pretty good. I would say the last thing I want to do is create a load more button. So I'm going to simply copy this. Whoops, let me delete that line. So this one would be a bit bigger, and I would just change the text to load more. And I'm going to change the border radius to 28 pixels and make it a bit wider, and then center this like so. I think the color should be different, kind of like that. Maybe the border should be different too. So what I'm going to do is zoom in, hit the eye tool, select that color, and then grab the shape. And I can change the, let's see, the stroke on it to that same color. So I think we should probably show more than 2 or 3 days at the start. Let me just copy this right here. Bring that down a bit. That looks good. Change the date and then extend this one down. And then bring the load more button down a bit. Cool, I think that's really all we need to do. The reason I wanted to do a single column timeline style layout for this is because it just works really well with the content itself. Job postings, it depends on the date. You would obviously want to see not just any job posts, you want to see recent job posts, and then you want to be able to filter between the various types you are looking for. So I think this itself will work very well. And then when we get into the code, we'll be able to very easily make it responsive because it's already a single column, and we would just need to change the width of it at the various viewport sizes. Really, we would only need to change it on mobile. All right, so I think we are done for this one. In the next week's episode, we will turn this PSD into HTML and CSS. All right, that is all for this one. I really hope you enjoyed it and were able to learn a lot from it. If you're interested in learning design, I'm creating a course just for you. It's called Design for Developers, and it's going to be a course for people who build stuff for the web. That course is going to be launching at the end of April, so go to designfordevelopers.co. and sign up for updates there so you don't miss out on that launch. Everybody on that list is going to get an exclusive launch discount among some other goodies, so make sure you get on that so you don't miss out. And be sure to come back here next week when I turn this design into the front end HTML and CSS. All right, see you guys.